She said it was okay. He told me not to tell. Oh, I wish I could tell someone.
30 years ago, we were so fortunate that 3 women saw a need in our community to help victims of sexual violence, and they were so brave and so strong. And with other people helping in the effort, started this agency. They probably had no idea where it was going back then, and hopefully they're proud today to see what they created.
We were members of National Organization for Women, which was a women's group. Consciousness groups were organized. And then through this, we realized how many women had been sexually assaulted or raped and had emotional scars. And
you remember there was a big conference put on, and there was a real big cross-section of the community attended. I mean, the police, the prosecutors, and it was at that time we realized we were the only densely populated area in the state that did not have a rape crisis program. And so we did a lot of needs assessment work.
Yes, a lot of
Great many women.
organized.
We interviewed all the prosecutors, the sheriffs. It was quite a fascinating thing, wasn't it? One person who will be nameless, he said, no, we don't have any rape in this. We're a bedroom community. Well, that's one of these things we've never forgotten.
We needed to do something. Then we decide, should we have an office, going to staff it? You know, who's going to run it? Are we going to recruit people? Do we need training?
One day we're having a meeting. We said, okay, we'll do it.
We started out in the mental health center in Richland.
It was a community mental health center at that time, which was federally funded. And one very astute young woman who worked there read the small print, and it said that a community mental health center had to provide the proper treatment for rape victims.
Yeah, the first time I remember that we really had a need is an attorney called me and says, a woman just called and she's been raped and she doesn't know what to do and I don't know what to do and you need to get up, one of those things you keep talking about.
There were probably 6 of us to start with. We set up a training.
We formed a coalition, state level, which gave us recognition, to organize this with the help, I might say, of a wonderful group of women. You know, we were pioneers in this area.
The idea for Kids Haven was that there needed to be some consistency and rules throughout Washington State for the child interviews.
Went to a training. At the very last 5 minutes of the training, they talked about the concept of Children's Advocacy Center. I thought it was very interesting and exciting.
There was a push both within the state of Washington and nationally in terms of the procedures and the protocols that were used to interview children, specifically in child sex abuse related cases.
This kid came up to me and said, you know, he was a 7 or 8-year-old child, and says, how many times do your adults have to ask me the same questions? I mean, it was a very simple question from a child that basically opened our eyes to what a child is going through. It's difficult for us as adults, if we haven't been through it, to see what that child's going through, at having to relive and relive and relive every time they relate what happened to them. They want to get over it for the most part. They want to move on. And for us to try to do something towards that, I think Kids Haven was our goal, is to try to reduce those numbers of interviews.
With Kids Haven, the advantage is to try to minimize the number of interviews, but also to have a professional interviewer so we can get really good results on these interviews, and also have these interviews done in a child-friendly atmosphere, being able to have SARC located in the same office so we can hook up children and also other victims with advocates right there, and I think that fosters the relationship.
So our county combined together, established a task force. Benton and Franklin counties together sat down and started meeting with people that were doing the child interviews and also the prosecutors. And so we had not only people from SARC representatives, but also prosecutors, detectives, from all the different agencies coming together and trying to think of, you know, how is this going to best serve our community.
I went to Andy Miller and to Steve Lowe to talk about that, and fortunately they were at least interested enough to pull together a task force to look at a Children's Advocacy Center concept.
It started off with the prosecutors and administrators from the law enforcement agencies, and the director from the Sexual Assault Response Center and some other interested parties.
We had everybody working together to try to make this work. That's what developed the program, is everybody's input, and there was a lot of give and take in those planning sessions.
And then what we did was we actually boiled it down to a working group.
Tanya Lamb, Earl Templeton, police officers like Tim Scott and Sandy Shepard. Of course, we had Jody. All the police chiefs and sheriffs were instrumental in supporting the concept of Kids Haven.
I became involved with the task force as a board member of SAR. On the task force, I became a community rep, more so representing victims and giving input and ideas and just kind of being involved in the process.
One of the best things about that group is there wasn't any hidden agenda. I never saw any conflict. Everybody kept their eye on the goal. There wasn't anything that anybody wanted out of it other than being a successful children's advocacy center.
It was very impressive how this all fell together. It fell together very well, and this partnership, I think, has really been beneficial not only for our child cases, but for the community. To know that they have this resource is huge.
Our interviewer, has been with us from the beginning. That's very unusual that we've had the same interviewer. And so I don't keep employees that long for 7 or 8 years to have the same interviewer from the beginning. That interview process obviously was very successful.
It was either 1 or 2 days that we spent all day long interviewing candidates and a lot of really, really good qualified people.
And I remember Andy giving me all these packets to go through to see, the top candidates. And I was just really impressed that we had that many people applying for it.
You then get somebody who's interested in it. Their qualities, their personalities relate to the child. They can get those interviews. They can research the techniques and the best way to interview the child to get the best result.
Now, children come to a very child-friendly facility. They speak to an interviewer who is trained specifically to talk to kids about sexual abuse. The other disciplines watch the interview behind a one-way mirror. The interviewer stops, asks for additional questions. This helps minimize the number of times a child is interviewed.
Looking back over 10 years worth of time being involved with Kids Haven, the work that comes out of Mari's office and the success that we're having in terms of holding these offenders accountable, I think speaks for itself. It's a huge asset to our community, and we're better for it.
One of the concerns was the old location in Richland wasn't necessarily a location that was convenient for all the different local agencies to respond to from Benton and Franklin County.
We didn't have room for an interview room, an observation room. We didn't have the room we needed to incorporate Kids Haven.
The Richland office had, probably 3 offices, a main area, and a library.
It was basically just kind of like an office complex as opposed to a center.
You had to go up a slide of stairs that were steep and wooden, and then you turned the corner and on up again. I don't think there were very many offices with wooden chairs, wooden tables.
There wasn't the space to add on or incorporate other offices over there, so it was pretty much automatic that the decision was made we were going to go elsewhere.
One thing that was really important to us is having the right location for Kids Haven.
It was kind of like a fun adventure that we're trying to all go towards and checking out all these different sites, and obviously seeing some of the sites that were not going to work out for us,
We had a couple of vans, and what we did was, one was my van, just crammed everybody in there, made a schedule of all the places to go, and really just went from place to place, assessing them, determining what was the best one.
I do remember we had a lot of police officers and social workers and prosecutors get into a van and drive all over the Tri-Cities looking for locations, some which were just awful.
Jody would come and pick Sal up in a van. We'd load into her van and we'd drive to this next location, and
When this office space came available, several of us became pretty excited about the possibilities right off the start. The way this building, this office was set up to begin with, we could make the connection between our conceptual idea and what was really in front of us. And so I think when presented with this opportunity, a lot of us really took to it pretty quickly.
This is centered well where people could find us easily. When I go on a hospital call to describe where it's at and where we can be found. And I love as you come in, the place for the kids, for Kids Haven.
The lady that painted the office had spent hours here, after hours, while we were closed, getting the hallway painted so that we would have it ready for our open house.
That's the nice thing when you walk into here. You get a feeling of warmth. The colors are warm. You get a feeling of welcome. It's not a stale office environment.
When we moved from the Richland office to this bigger office here, it was a very exciting time, just moving to a bigger building and more light and more, it was very nice experience to do that.
We had our open house a few months after we'd been here. You know, a lot of people showed up, a lot of people from the community, a lot of people that supported the agency.
And we became master fundraisers.
We didn't get money from United Way. We had fundraisers of cookie sales. I think we sold hot dogs at some summer basketball games down at Richland High School. And this was before they had the hoops and the starry nights and all of that.
Hot Hoops was a fundraiser that we began many, many years ago, and I think we had it for about 3 or 4 years. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
The Hot Hoops was a big fundraiser for SARC.
That was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun.
We set up the night before, set up the tables, and umbrellas.
A lot of it was just the runaround and getting the courts chalked, you know, and closing down the road and stuff like that.
There were a lot of people running around during Hot Hoops, and it was hard to get everyone together and make sure everything always worked.
I worked a couple of the concessions where they had water and things like that, and I also refereed some of the kids' games.
I'd say Michael Henry was our greatest fight breaker-upper. Michael was more effective in that area.
I refereed several games one weekend and helped stop fights. It gets pretty serious at the end, you know, the finals.
I think I broke my back at Hot Hoops while moving away these real heavy wooden backboards. So I wasn't sorry to see that replaced by Starry Night.
We began a Starry Night. We had the auction for 6 years at the home in Don and Lori Watts.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of excitement. We had a live auctioneer out there working the crowd.
That was always a fun event to raise money. I think also was good. A lot of us who work on these types of cases were under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. We always want to do the right thing. I think the ability to socialize and see people in a different context has been very nice.
It was fun. It was really nice to see people giving for such a good cause.
One of those giveaways was the Grill the Prosecutor, and I really enjoyed that because I got to meet a wonderful group of supporters of SARC.
Just wonderful acts of kindness just to really help our agency and to help the children. That's where the money went. From a Starry Night, we now have an online auction. It worked quite well. It was quite exciting.
I talked my husband into buying me all types of fun things.
The online auction was pretty good. I got some pretty good deals for trips and things like that.
We got great stuff. I think I got a great bottle of wine.
We walked away spending a lot more money than we initially planned on, but there's not too many cops, I don't think, in the Tri-Cities or in the state of Washington or probably in this nation that own a crystal pineapple like I do now.
My family enjoyed our time here.
The competition can get quite heated, such as with our rocking horse. Frank Lamb was definitely bidding on that, as was Carol Harding at the same time. I think if Carol wasn't here or Frank wasn't here, it might not have gone as high.
It was fun trying to bid against the other people. There was a rocking horse I didn't even want, but I was kind of bidding on it for a while because it kind of made the guys who really wanted to keep bidding.
And in the end, Frank did win the rocking horse.
My sister's having a boy, and so she's brought it over there and said, this is for my grandson. So it was cute.
There are a variety of outreach efforts that our agency does as well. One such example is Walk a Mile. The concept Walk a Mile comes behind the idea you can't understand someone else's plight till you've walked a mile in their shoes.
We got up Saturday morning nice and early and did a walk around Jefferson Park in Richland to make people aware of walking a mile in her shoes as far as sexual assault is concerned.
Bill Copeland from DOC is a wonderful example of a male who is willing to step up. He came to Walk a Mile. He wore just the most wonderful shoes and really put himself out there.
I'm proud to say that Chief Corsi from Richland PD, I think he is great in women's shoes. Next year, I promised him that I will select a pair for him and help him along a little bit.
I believe, if I remember correctly, I do believe Chief Hohenberg did not have women's shoes on, so shame on him.
It was a fun event, but it was a good event to bring people together.
I was in New Orleans for a training, and I saw a project to do with domestic violence. And I had an idea that perhaps we should do something like that was related to our services. So from that idea, we came up with the Little People Project.
She got the statistics from Benton and Franklin County, and I said, we need to do something to represent it. She says, well, first of all, we have no budget. Okay, so what's your idea? Well, we need to build, and it's like, okay, so how are we going to do this?
I know the first year that was, you know, getting the little people made and having them constructed and getting them clothed was a lot of work.
The construction and the development of the Little People Project was really quite huge. It took so many different people to develop these little guys.
Luckily, there was other people in the community that really stepped up to help.
Painting their faces, finding hair, finding clothes.
My mom, Marcia Krug, actually painted a lot of the faces. At the time, we didn't have the help that we do now, and we used to use my dad's old pickup. So we didn't even have a budget rent-a-truck.
Now they go out together. Budget does donate a van for us. So they go to the mall, they go to Wazoo, they come out in front of SARC.
It's been kind of fun being able to help out as well with the Little People Project, sitting out the little people in different areas.
Went to CBC with the big trucks with all the little people, and I had to load them into the lobby.
Taking down the display when it was at Columbia Center.
Because the project was so time-consuming and difficult at first, we decided we might as well try to incorporate a fundraising component. We have hearts that say Helping Little Hearts Heal. They're red hearts we place around the little people's necks, and we ask people to sponsor them for $10 each.
When they're actually out on display in the community, I think it's impactful, and I think it is every time you see it, even though, you know we do it every year, and you know it's coming, and you know it's still, when you see them all out and you look at them, you go, wow, yeah, it really does make a statement.
If you're really committed to working at this agency, it's not a job, it's really not a career, it's more of a lifestyle. It includes your entire family.
Especially at nights when you would not get back in till 3 or 4 o'clock at night, and they would see that you were gone.
One of the neatest things that has been for my family personally is my family did get involved. Mary had been an advocate with Claudia Gessel for over 10 years. Once I became a board member and then I started working here, my dad got involved with, he was a big sponsor of Hot Hoops. And then my mother actually became an advocate also, Marcia Krug.
I first learned about SARC through my cousin. She was on the board of directors.
My daughter Jody is the director of SARC, and so since she's got involved in it, I've been involved in it.
My wife is on the board of directors.
I'm an advocate, and my husband was a board member.
My mom is the director.
There's so many opportunities for loved ones to be involved, and it's really beneficial for them because they can understand what we're doing.
We actually filmed a commercial. Charter produced a commercial that Jody's kids were in and my kids were in.
I had the fake tear.
I had to say I liked playing video games with Jimmy. It was different how they had you talk so slowly.
I felt like a movie star every time it comes on.
And the kids still see it today. And when it comes on, they like to tell all their friends, oh, that's our commercial.
Everybody started talking, oh, we were on a commercial.
And I still hear people talk to me about that commercial.
If you really care about the agency and what we do, I don't think you can help but your families be involved, whether it be on our charter commercials, whether it be on fundraising events, whether it be my own mom has helped with so many events along the way. So our families are involved in all those type of events. For example, at the Walk a Mile, my husband and children came, Jessica's husband Jeremy was involved, Dez's family. People brought their families to that because that's what you do.
I've been working alongside SARC and Kids Haven now for just over 10 years.
Almost 11 years.
And for about 6 years, 8.5 years.
5 years.
Over 10 years.
20 years.
About 12 years.
Almost 8 years now.
I was the director from 83 to 87.
Since October of 1998.
I was a prosecutor in 1995.
Back 78, 79.
As a deputy prosecutor, I've been working with SARC for over 20 years.
Since before it was called Sexual Assault Response Center.
My mother was one of the founders of Rape Relief, the predecessor to SARC, and she would just talk to me about the problems with sexual assault cases in the criminal justice system. As a law school, I was aware of some of the issues, and I was aware of some of the good work that advocates could do.
They're very helpful with
victims to be able to have more contact with the victims about court dates, keep the victims more informed.
They have services available, and as well as a helping, holding hand for victims and their families.
Having an advocate that's not affiliated with the police or with the prosecutor's office, I can tell it makes a difference.
Advocate can be a constant presence for them through the whole process of interviews and exams.
The sexual assault center is needed to keep the police department informed, to keep the criminal justice system involved, and to educate the community on all the types of sexual violence there are.
We need to support SARC while we work to reduce the reason why SARC exists.
It's important to help support agencies like SARC because I believe sex abuse is such a public health issue that it's easy to not talk about it.
I do see an impact. I'm really glad that our community has an organization like SARC. I can't imagine what would happen to people in our community that need the variety of services that SARC provides if it wasn't here. There would be a huge void. There's no doubt about that.
Soccer is important because it helps kids.
The Sexual Assault Response Center is an agency that responds 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So they're always available. That's one of the things that we appreciate. Criminal activity doesn't stop 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so we really value the fact that we can call regardless of the time, regardless of the day, regardless whether it's a holiday or not, and we can get an advocate out to help a victim.
If SARC did not have such compassionate and dedicated, well-trained volunteers, we could not provide the services that we do today.
It's kind of amazing all of the people that are connected to the program and you don't really see normally. They're behind the scenes, they're doing things, keeping busy, doing things and helping people. And I think it's really cool that SARC acknowledges that so well.
I'm an advocate, and so I do medical calls, and I also do crisis line. I've been with SARC for about 7 years.
For those that need to, they become a volunteer because I think there's a lack of men involved in the whole effort to reduce or prevent crimes against families, women, and children.
I have volunteered for the SARC training. I've been on the legal panel.
I've had an opportunity to participate in the puppet theaters and be able to act and do some of the puppet show with other SARC volunteers and workers.
So they hear very difficult stories in the middle of the night at all sorts of times, and it's so hard on them, and they don't have the benefit of other staff members being present to talk things through.
As far as doing the job, I think the hospital was easier for me than doing the phone calls. Sometimes it's pretty traumatic or just hard dealing with the case that you're on.
I volunteered for the busiest nights. After a few years of that, my wife finally said something to the effect of, I just don't know if I can handle knowing that it goes on that much. The hospital calls were really tough.
Approximately 10 years ago, our crisis program director at the time, Debbie Sobey, felt it was very important that we begin having an appreciation event for our volunteers because we need them so much and they make such a huge difference.
We have wonderful community volunteers. Myself and maybe some other stuff we did put together at an appreciation dinner.
Well, those are kind of cool. I really enjoy seeing all the people.
Our annual banquet and award ceremony was always nice and fun time to get together and talk.
The yearly volunteer appreciation dinners and activities have always been really fun, and I think that the staff have put a lot of time and effort into those.
It's a great time to be able to just tell the volunteers what they mean to us, to talk about how many hours the volunteers put in, because until you hear the thousands or the hundreds of hours, it's really hard to comprehend how much work that they do. And even the volunteers who can't make it, I think it still sends a sign to them that they matter enough to us that we are organizing an event on their behalf. One of the reasons that we had this event tonight was to celebrate the 30 years that this agency has been in existence, to look at where we started with 3 women who are so passionate and so brave and stepped up to the plate to get this agency going, to look around the room and see all the types of people it took to help our community, whether it be volunteers, staff members, funders. It took so many different people, our partners, our prosecutors, law enforcement. There are so many different types of people involved in the work that we do. There are so many people that we are dependent upon, that our community is dependent upon. And I think it's very exciting to look at the growth of the agency and also to look at the things that stayed the same. The passion is still there today as it was before. Our crisis program might have additional services, but we do the same thing that we did because it's what works. These women started something good. We need to acknowledge what we've done. We need to feel proud of what we've done, but it can't stop here. Part of tonight is also a call to action. It's to be able to realize that we've done a good thing. Everybody involved should be so proud. It should be somewhat emotional to them to look at what has been created. It is not one person or a small group of people that have done this. It's this room full and all the other people that couldn't make it tonight. And I think what we really need to look at is, this isn't the end, this is 30 years. This agency will always be here. Hopefully over time, maybe we have more on the prevention side because we have less clients, because the need is less. That would be wonderful. I think it would not be realistic to think we will never have victims. We want to minimize the number, and we want to enhance our services, and we want to always be forward thinking of how to do a better job and to meet the needs of our community members. And I just think it's very important for all of us to look at this. If we haven't been involved for years, how can we be involved again? How can we support this agency? Whether it's talking to other people about the work that we do, your involvement, it's just important to be energized again. Think about what's been done, think about what needs to be done, and not to stop your involvement now.